Scientists say we've got nothing to worry about, but let's be honest. What if tomorrow morning, your weather app casually mentioned total planetary annihilation by asteroid at 3 p.m.? Bring an umbrella and maybe a shovel for your soul. Welcome to What If Horizons, the podcast where we peel back the fabric of reality, patch it with duct tape, and ask the questions that keep theoretical physicists awake and mildly sweaty. Now let's get this out of the way. Earth has been hit by asteroids before. Big ones. Not just the kind that make a satisfying splash in the ocean, but the kind that delete continents and rearrange species like a toddler playing with evolution's Lego set. The dinosaurs, famously unimpressed by the surprise rock from space, were wiped out roughly 66 million years ago. One minute they were sipping primeval swamp water and arguing about whose tail looked cooler, and the next, boom, gone. All because a chunk of space rubble had a bad attitude and no brakes. But that asteroid wasn't unstoppable. It just wasn't stopped. There's a difference. Today, we have telescopes, space agencies, engineers with caffeine addictions, and billionaires who are oddly enthusiastic about rockets. Theoretically, we could deflect or destroy a dangerous asteroid if we spotted it early enough. But let's throw optimism in the bin for a moment. What if the asteroid was truly unstoppable? Not a maybe, not a hypothetical risk, a certainty. A cosmic freight train headed straight for our pale blue dot, and all we can do is count down the hours. First question, who would get to name it? Because you know some internet NASA is going to call it something like Rocco the Ender or Apocalypse Time. Second question, how long before conspiracy theorists start selling crystal helmets on TikTok? And third, but definitely not last, what happens to us, individually, socially, globally, when we realize there's absolutely, positively no way out? Let's start with the scientists. The brave, brilliant, emotionally exhausted humans who would first spot the asteroid. Maybe it's a Tuesday. Maybe someone's just microwaving their lunch. Then a blinking dot appears on the telescope's monitor. Fast, bright, wrong angle, wrong speed, wrong everything. And as they run the numbers, they realize it's not just heading toward Earth. It's going to make Earth wish it had insurance. Cue the meetings, the emergency briefings, politicians trying to pronounce asteroid correctly while making eye contact with 14 cameras. Experts showing grim animations where Earth looks like a poorly baked potato getting hit with a sledgehammer. Some countries will call for calm. Others will call for evacuation. Evacuation to where, you ask? Great question. Mars is out of reach. The moon is too small. And bunkers. Those are just expensive holes with Wi-Fi and bad canned food. So humanity does what it always does in the face of doom. It gets weird. Really weird. Governments scramble to prepare. Airlines get booked solid for flights to nowhere. Billionaires argue over who gets the last space on the last rocket, only to discover the rocket was a promotional inflatable. Religious groups declare fulfillment of prophecy. Influencers launch countdown-themed merch drops. People marry their long-lost high school crushes or at least send them dramatic voice notes. Others adopt a more philosophical route, choosing to eat every dessert in the supermarket while screaming, "If I go out full of tiramisu." But the strangest thing is how quickly we would adapt to the knowledge. After the initial panic, something deeper settles in. A kind of surreal clarity. What do you say to your loved ones when the planet has an expiration date? What regrets do you burn in your memory? And which ones do you let go because, hey, it's all going to be space dust anyway? Strangely, a lot of the things we thought mattered stop mattering. No one cares about traffic or quarterly reports. Nobody's arguing about what color that dress is. Everyone's staring at the sky, at the little dot that's getting bigger by the day. It's the first time in human history that the entire world is looking in the same direction for the same reason. We have finally achieved global unity. Just in time for global deletion. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The asteroid hasn't hit yet. There are still plans being made. There's still time, even if it's measured in days. And believe it or not, the time before impact is where things get truly interesting. Not just the mad scrambles and weird parties, but the science, the psychology, the absolutely ridiculous ways we try to find meaning in the face of total obliteration. Because if you know you're going to lose the game, how do you play your last move? Stay tuned. In the days following the announcement, things start to unravel, not in flames, but in a kind of awkward, existential shrug. Imagine an office meeting where someone says, "Well, the world is ending," and then everyone just sort of nods and continues to eat stale muffins. That's the vibe. Governments issue statements. Emergency broadcasts play the same 3 jingles over and over, like it's a new asteroid-themed pop radio station. The stock market, oh, it's still running. Somehow. Because nothing says financial resilience like investing in a company that won't exist in a week. But some people take the coming impact more seriously. There are those who build bunkers, despite knowing the asteroid will turn Earth's crust into confetti. Others retreat to mountaintops, spiritual centers, or particularly cozy IKEA showrooms. A few just walk into the sea with headphones on, blasting their end-of-world playlist. Let's be honest, everyone's playlists suddenly get a lot more dramatic. Bohemian Rhapsody climbs back to number 1. So does REM. Of course it does. Meanwhile, scientists everywhere do what they were trained to do. Not scream into the void, although that's a close second. No, they calculate. They run simulations. They build models. They argue over whether an impact in the Pacific will cause fewer firestorms than one in the Sahara. And eventually, they produce one final, glorious report. It's peer-reviewed, footnoted, and completely useless. It ends with a sentence no scientific paper has ever included until now. We suggest everyone hug someone, eat something fried, and gaze longingly at the moon while it still exists. But even in the middle of all this, people cling to some sense of routine. They go to work, sort of. Cafes open late and close early, with signs that say no refunds after Tuesday. Schools stay open just long enough for teachers to say heartfelt goodbyes, then burn their grading rubrics in small ceremonial bonfires. Weddings happen in bulk. Divorces, too. Lawyers offer buy one get one deals for end-of-world paperwork. And then there's the media. Oh boy, news anchors start dressing like Bond villains. Weather reports include asteroid trajectory updates between sunny with a chance of doom and partly cloudy with local firestorms. Talk shows pivot hard into celestial fatalism. One segment asks what snacks pair best with extinction. Cheese seems to win, as it always does. Strangely, the arts flourish. Musicians compose symphonies titled things like Concerto for a Dying Planet. Painters create murals on every available surface. Graffiti blossoms with poetry. Even poets, usually allergic to public gatherings, appear on street corners shouting verses into the wind. Why? Because there's nothing left to do but create, love, and yell at the sky. And eat cheese, apparently. But not everyone is spiraling. Some people are finding peace. The kind of peace that only comes when the Wi-Fi dies and nobody bothers to restart the router. Parents hold their kids tighter. Old grudges are dropped like hot potatoes. People write letters they were too scared to send. Some finally say I love you. Others finally say I'm sorry. A few just say nothing and stare at sunsets, which, by the way, are suddenly spectacular. Turns out incoming doom really brings out the color in the sky. And there are still those trying to solve the problem. A last-minute effort, launched by an international coalition of scientists, engineers, and that one guy on YouTube who swears he built a railgun out of toasters. They don't expect to win. But they want to try. Because trying matters, even when the outcome is certain. Especially when it is. And try they do. They send rockets. They fire nukes. They launch what is essentially a giant space tennis racket. Nothing works. The asteroid is too big, too fast, too stubborn. It ignores all attempts to nudge it off course. It is a rock with purpose. An interstellar mood. Still, hope clings like glitter in a carpet. Maybe something unexpected will happen. Maybe the asteroid will disintegrate. Maybe aliens will intervene. Maybe, in the final moments, someone will press the right button. Or maybe not. Maybe the story ends the way it always was going to. Not with a bang or a whimper, but with a cosmic high five from a rock that never asked to be born in the first place. So people begin to prepare. Not for survival, but for the moment itself. The impact. The final seconds. The curtain call. And that preparation says more about us than any crater ever could. Because when time runs out, what remains is not fear. It is memory. It is laughter. It is all the small absurd things that made life worth living, even under the shadow of an unstoppable stone from the stars. In the third week after the announcement, the asteroid becomes a celebrity. Not metaphorically, literally. It trends on every platform. People give it nicknames. Some call it Big Crunchy. Others prefer Steve. One enterprising influencer releases a line of asteroid merch. T-shirts that say "Hug me, I'm extinct." Mugs shaped like tiny craters. There's even a perfume called Impact, with top notes of ozone and existential dread. And of course, there's a documentary. Always a documentary, narrated by someone with a voice smoother than melted butter on a jazz record. It opens with a slow zoom on the spinning rock of doom and the words "When the sky falls, what falls with it?" Critics call it haunting and strangely soothing, mostly because the soundtrack is just whale songs and violin solos recorded in a cave. Meanwhile, conspiracy theories flourish like mushrooms in a compost heap. Some people say the asteroid isn't real. Others believe it's a hoax orchestrated by lizard people trying to reset the timeline. There's even a guy who insists it's actually the return of the lost moon Kevin, exiled from Earth's orbit for being too clingy. Kevin is trending now. Kevin has a fanbase. Kevin has a podcast. But the rest of humanity is more focused on simpler things. Baking, mostly. Bread returns as the universal comfort object. Sourdough starters are more valuable than gold. Every house smells like a warm bakery with mild panic undertones. People share recipes like secrets. Someone invents asteroid cookies, which are just burnt biscuits with chocolate chips and a vague sense of doom. Churches, mosques, temples, and living rooms become places of reflection. Some people pray, some meditate, some shout profanities into old microwaves because it feels spiritual. Whatever works. Spiritual enlightenment is now a matter of preference in available kitchen appliances. And despite everything, life continues to be absurd. One guy proposes to his girlfriend during a traffic jam, using a paperclip ring and a windshield wiper solo. She says yes. A small town elects a golden retriever as mayor, reasoning that if the end is near, they might as well have a leader who's consistently happy and has no tax plan. Global diplomacy, surprisingly, experiences a golden age. Countries agree to share everything: oil, water, internet memes. A new global treaty simply states no more nonsense, effective immediately. Old grudges dissolve. Historical apologies are exchanged via handwritten letters and extremely emotional dance performances. Even world leaders drop the act. Speeches get personal. A president admits he never understood cryptocurrency. A prime minister reads poetry about bees. A dictator takes up watercolor and paints sunsets until he forgets how to order troops around. The military doesn't mind. They're too busy playing soccer matches against former enemies and losing graciously. And then there's the children. The smallest, most unfiltered mirrors of humanity. They don't cry as much as you'd expect. They ask strange, beautiful questions like, will the asteroid be lonely after we're gone, or do you think dinosaurs will high-five us in the afterlife? Parents answer as best they can, caught between heartbreak and wonder. Across cities and towns, murals begin to appear. Not sad ones, glorious ones. They depict life as it was, as it could be, and as it might be in the moments right before the end. One wall shows a giant dog riding a meteor like a cowboy. Another shows Earth holding hands with the asteroid and laughing. Maybe that's how peace is made, in art and absurdity. And what of science? Those glorious, sleep-deprived minds in lab coats still work. Not because they expect to stop the impact, but because it feels right to keep learning, even when time is short. They chart trajectories, study dust composition, debate orbital mechanics with the same energy people use arguing over pizza toppings. Because knowledge is the one thing the asteroid can't take. But deeper than knowledge, deeper than fear, is the question on everyone's mind. Not how do we stop this? Not even how do we say goodbye? The question is, what did we miss? Not in regret, but in curiosity. Did we forget to tell someone we loved them? Did we miss the smell of rain? The way coffee tastes at 6 a.m. The feeling of toes in warm sand. The sound of a friend's laughter. And then it becomes clear. This isn't just about an asteroid. It never was. It's about everything we are when time runs out. How we rise. How we fall. How we sing while the sky burns. The asteroid continues its approach. Unchanging. Unbothered. The cosmic equivalent of someone walking confidently toward a party they weren't invited to but are absolutely attending anyway. And Earth, for all its flaws and failures, decides to throw the best farewell party the universe has ever seen. At this point, humanity collectively shifts into what experts might call the why not phase. You know, That special psychological zone between denial and acceptance where everything suddenly becomes a bucket list item. People start doing things they never had the nerve for. Grandmas go skydiving. Accountants take up flame throwing. A group in Denmark tries to turn a trampoline park into a zero-gravity opera house. And honestly, it sounds better than expected. Weddings explode in frequency. Not literally, thank goodness. But metaphorically, in that everyone and their cat seems to be tying the knot. Some do it out of love, others out of panic. A few do it for tax purposes, then remember taxes no longer matter when the sky is literally falling. Someone even marries a toaster. No judgment. It made great waffles and listened patiently. Meanwhile, office life disappears entirely. Nobody misses it. Cubicles vanish like cursed relics. Zoom calls finally die the quiet death they deserve. Out of the ashes rises a beautiful new ritual known as spending time with actual humans. Backyard chats, park picnics, singing with strangers on rooftops under orange-tinged skies. Nature, too, starts reclaiming its space. With fewer people commuting, cities begin to bloom like forgotten gardens. Deer walk down main streets. Foxes chill in subways. A kangaroo is spotted riding an escalator in Sydney with what appears to be zero regard for social norms. Earth, for once, is getting her groove back while her inhabitants prepare for the final curtain. And then, the asteroid starts to glow. Nobody expected this. It was already dramatic enough being unstoppable and massive and indifferent to human emotion. But now it's glowing. A slow, subtle shimmer. A cosmic disco ball with a personal vendetta. Scientists scramble to explain it. Some say it's natural friction. Others suspect alien graffiti. One very passionate YouTuber claims it's God trying out mood lighting for the apocalypse. Governments issue official statements asking citizens not to panic. Which, as always, is the international code for please panic in an orderly fashion. The global mood swings between serene acceptance and full-blown interpretive dance of doom. There's even a brief resurgence in astrology. People want to know what their horoscopes say about being squashed by space rock. Spoiler alert. Capricorn is still stubborn. Scorpio is still dramatic. Pisces, naturally, cries under a weighted blanket. The most unexpected development comes from a small radio station in Finland, which broadcasts non-stop bedtime stories. It starts as a community comfort project but quickly gains traction. People tune in from every continent. The stories are odd, whimsical, sometimes nonsensical, like a giraffe trying to build a rocket out of cheese, but they soothe something ancient in all of us. A reminder that even when things fall apart, imagination endures. Philosophers go on nightly news panels to wax poetic about meaning. One suggests the asteroid is a metaphor for mortality. Another calls it the universe's way of reminding us that deadlines are real. A third just yells into the microphone and walks off stage. Viewers find it cathartic. The ratings are excellent. Even fashion gets weirdly poetic. People wear glitter capes to the grocery store. Suits made of recycled disco balls. Someone revives powdered wigs. The apocalypse has a dress code now, and it's fierce. If the end is coming, they argue, we might as well arrive in style. And amid all the creativity and chaos, love blooms like mold on week-old bread, but in a charming way. Notebooks fill with poetry. Strangers fall for each other mid-evacuation drill. A couple gets engaged inside a bunker stocked with peanut butter and existential hope. The asteroid hasn't even landed, and already it's responsible for more romance than Valentine's Day and 3 Nicholas Sparks movies combined. Then comes the Great Bake Off of 2043. Not official, not televised, just millions of people across the world deciding to bake at once. Banana bread, lasagna, 12-layer cakes that defy physics and dietary recommendations. Kitchens become sanctuaries. The smell of sugar and cinnamon becomes Earth's final perfume. Meanwhile, children draw what they think the asteroid looks like. Surprisingly, most don't draw it as a scary thing. They draw it smiling, waving, wearing a hat. In one bold interpretation, it's riding a unicycle while juggling planets. Maybe they know something we don't. Or maybe they're just better at hope. In a quiet observatory, an astronomer stares at the glowing mass of space stone and writes one word in their notebook, inevitable. Then pauses, crosses it out, writes beautiful. The countdown continues. But no one's counting. Somewhere between hour 62 and the end of time, a surprising number of people begin speaking to the asteroid directly. Not with radios or science. Just, from rooftops, parking lots, yoga mats. Shouting upward as if the asteroid might respond. And perhaps, in a way, it does. Because while it remains silent and glowing and on track for planetary annihilation, it now feels like a guest at the world's longest farewell party. People name it, some call it Steve, others go with more dignified titles like the Final Hug or Karen. A particularly hopeful faction refers to it simply as Bob, short for Big Orb of Benevolence. They insist it's misunderstood, that maybe, just maybe, it's here to guide humanity into a higher dimension. Or at least teach us how to make better sourdough. Artists erupt in a frenzy of last-chance masterpieces. A 10-story mural of the asteroid hugging the Earth appears in Rio. A violinist composes a concerto called Please Don't Flatten Us in D minor. Street performers act out historical events with sock puppets and surprising emotional depth. In a world where time is limited, creativity expands like the universe once did before its scheduled implosion. Meanwhile, billionaires scramble to become spacefarers. Elon's 43rd Mars rocket is now held together with duct tape and blind faith. Jeff launches a giant Amazon package labeled, Return to Sender. Richard just keeps smiling and talking about altitude. Most of the public, though, just watches with popcorn, treating it like the season finale of Capitalism, the reality show. Religious leaders of all faiths come together in an unprecedented act of unity. They hold hands, sing songs, and agree that, regardless of doctrine, no one signed up for asteroid season. Even atheists join in, just in case. It becomes less about belief and more about togetherness. Some pray, others meditate. One guy plays the kazoo, sincerely. It's weirdly moving. The asteroid, now visible in the sky by day and glowing with the intensity of 10,000 LED billboards at night, becomes the unofficial mascot of humanity's existential rebrand. T-shirts are made, memes flood the internet, someone starts a parody Twitter account from its point of view. Sample tweet. Just passing by to say hi. Also, duck. Governments, having exhausted all options except interpretive dance, officially retire diplomacy. They issue final broadcasts reminding citizens to be kind, stay hydrated, and maybe stop hoarding canned beans. At this stage, if your underground bunker doesn't have a ping-pong table and 3 dogs named Bark Twain, it's too late anyway. Yet in the midst of it all, some continue to search for meaning. Not in survival, but in stories. They gather in small circles, sharing tales of past triumphs, lessons learned, bad dates, good meals, and one guy's lifelong quest to find the world's best donut. There's laughter, sometimes tears, mostly in understanding that if this is it, at least we're going out chatting. Strangely, time itself begins to behave differently. Hours stretch, compress, feel more like suggestions than rules. Perhaps it's the impending impact. Or maybe it's the first time in centuries humans have truly lived in the moment. The fear is still there, hovering like an unpaid parking ticket. But it's joined by awe, wonder, the sheer absurdity of existence on a rock floating in space, about to be hit by another rock that couldn't care less about mortgage rates. And so, rituals emerge. People take to writing their names on walls. Not in panic, but in pride. In a quiet corner of Italy, a grandmother plants one final tomato seed. In Iceland, a poet carves a haiku into glacier ice. In Tokyo, someone builds a perfectly miniature version of Earth, just in case the universe wants a backup. In the Philippines, a man sets up a telescope and offers strangers a glimpse at the end. They stand in line, polite and quiet, waiting for their turn to see what's coming. Some gasp, some smile. One kid looks through the lens and says, "I thought it would be bigger." The asteroid keeps glowing. It no longer looks angry, or violent, or cold, just inevitable, like a cosmic punctuation mark. Not a period, not an exclamation, maybe just an ellipsis. And still, nobody stops baking. The asteroid now casts shadows at noon. It has become the Earth's second sun, though far less helpful and significantly more ominous. Its presence hangs over everything like a spoiler you can't unhear. People no longer need weather reports. It's always the same forecast. Partly cloudy, 100% chance of obliteration. But surprisingly, the apocalypse has a soundtrack. Across rooftops, balconies, and fire escapes, bands form from scratch. Jazz trios, ukulele mobs, death metal dads, One inspired group in Berlin invents a genre called Apokefunk and gains a cult following overnight. People dance like no one's watching, mostly because anyone who would normally judge is too busy twerking in a hazmat suit. In fact, dancing becomes the default coping mechanism. Entire cities start flash mobs. Elderly couples waltz in supermarkets. Teenagers do interpretive breakdancing on courthouse steps. One man performs Swan Lake in a canoe on a flooded street. Critics call it haunting. He calls it cardio. Animals, meanwhile, seem entirely unimpressed. Birds still chirp. Cats remain aloof. Dogs are thrilled someone's finally staying home all day. A zoo in Oregon reports their orangutans are building increasingly elaborate pillow forts. Scientists have no explanation, but the leading theory is, why not? And then comes the day of outrageously unhelpful advice. Social media explodes with suggestions on how to survive a direct asteroid hit. Wear sunscreen. Drink more water. Paint your house white to reflect impact energy. One influencer swears by celery juice. Another goes viral with a video titled "How I Lost 10 Pounds Before the End of the World." Spoiler. She ate nothing but anxiety and bubble wrap. Conspiracy theorists reach their final form. They claim the asteroid isn't real, or that it's a hologram, or that it's payback for humanity's sins, mostly involving pineapple on pizza. One group insists that if we all chant the word platypus in unison, the asteroid will change course out of sheer confusion. People actually try it. The asteroid remains unmoved, but for 30 glorious minutes, the world echoes with the strangest symphony in history. Meanwhile, someone finds a dusty old book titled "How to Make Peace with the Universe in 5 Steps." It contains nothing but blank pages. Critics call it profound. One art student turns it into a best-selling graphic novel by drawing smiling stars on every page and charging $20 a copy. Humanity, facing extinction, still refuses to pass up a good hustle. At this point, there are those who start recording legacy messages. On paper, in video, through old tape recorders and songs scribbled in notebooks. They leave behind stories, warnings, bad jokes, and even recipes. If future aliens ever sift through our ruins, they'll be deeply confused by the number of lasagna instructions and sock puppet operas we've chosen to preserve. But maybe that's exactly who we were. And in a hidden corner of northern Canada, someone launches a balloon into the sky with a simple handwritten note attached. It reads, "We were here. We tried. We were messy and loud and beautiful." As the asteroid draws closer, a strange kind of peace descends. Not the quiet of resignation, but the calm of understanding, of choosing to face the end with humor, music, and maybe one final slice of pie. One man builds a throne out of beanbags and declares himself king of Earth for 12 hours. He issues royal decrees like, "Let the children eat ice cream for breakfast," and, "Every karaoke song must end in interpretive shouting." No one argues. His reign is brief but deeply respected. In New Zealand, someone starts a live stream titled, "Staring at the Asteroid Until It Blinks." It garners millions of viewers. It never blinks, and perhaps most poignantly, parents tell their kids bedtime stories. Not of fear, but of wonder. About stars, dinosaurs, magical oceans, and the bravery of people who danced when the sky fell. The asteroid pulses brighter, not cruel, not kind, just there, a celestial force without grudge or mercy. And still, the world turns. Slowly, gratefully. In a village square in Spain, people light candles and pass around instruments. Someone begins singing a lullaby with no words, just a tune that sounds like hope mixed with moonlight. People hum along. Even those who don't know the melody find themselves swaying. There's no longer any talk of stopping it, only of savoring what's left. By now, the asteroid takes up a third of the sky. You don't look at it anymore. You live under it. It is no longer just a celestial body barreling through space. It has become part of the emotional weather. Some days, it looms with dread. Others, oddly, with comfort. Like a really intense paperweight reminding us our lease on existence was always month to month. School's close, not out of necessity. Kids have already stopped pretending to care about fractions, but because the world itself has become the curriculum. Children learn history from grandparents, science from news briefings, and philosophy from whatever's left of Twitter, which, against all odds, is now just pictures of soup and group hugs. There's a strange civility to things. Traffic laws dissolve, yet accidents drop. No one bothers hoarding anymore. Grocery stores operate on an honor system. You take what you need, leave what you don't, and occasionally someone swaps a can of beans for a poem. It's oddly effective. Turns out, humanity can function without a barcode scanner and 17 meetings. Wedding proposals surge, so do impromptu dance recitals. Someone marries a mannequin. 3 people in Prague legally wed the moon. Bureaucracy finally gives up and simply stamps everything, approved. Go live. But not everything is whimsical. Some people struggle. Not everyone finds clarity in the shadow of cosmic annihilation. Anxiety doesn't vanish just because you can see the end from your front porch. Fear lingers, hiding in closets with unpaid bills and half-eaten protein bars. That's when the kindness really kicks in. Neighbors cook for each other. Strangers become family. Someone starts a movement called Hug It Out, and for the first time in a decade, humanity agrees on something. There's no room left for cruelty. Not because it's been outlawed, but because it's boring now. Television adapts. Reality shows are replaced by confessionals. People share regrets, dreams, songs they never sang, dances they never dared. One series titled, Oops, becomes an international sensation. It's just people owning up to embarrassing moments. One man admits he once ate a candle thinking it was cheese. Ratings soar. With the asteroid now visible during the daytime, a peculiar thing happens. Shadows become longer, more dramatic, like something out of a noir film. People begin holding soliloquies in parking lots. Not because anyone's filming, just because dramatic lighting demands it. And then come the end of everything parties. Not raves, not riots, just gatherings, beach bonfires, rooftop dinners, backyard sing-alongs. Entire towns sit in circles and take turns telling stories. The Earth, in its final moments, becomes one massive sleepover. There are jokes, tears, plenty of snacks. Children draw the asteroid, always giving it faces. Some smile, some frown. One girl paints hers weeping. Not from guilt, just from watching everything below and realizing she's about to erase it. Still, there's no malice in the sky, just momentum. The world's philosophers scramble to write final essays. They scribble on napkins, sidewalks, bathroom walls. Nothing is edited, nothing footnoted, but the theme is consistent. Life was absurd, and that absurdity made it glorious. In Australia, a surfer rides one last impossible wave and yells into the wind, "Do your worst, Sky Rock." Before wiping out spectacularly, he's fine, becomes a folk hero within 6 hours. And somewhere in Siberia, a single daisy blooms through the snow. A woman sees it, kneels beside it, and quietly names it Kevin. The asteroid glows, closer now, larger, and Earth, despite everything, smiles back. The impact zone is no longer theory. Satellites have narrowed it down to somewhere between, an ocean, probably, and, who knows, we're all toast anyway. Scientists hold press conferences, mostly to shrug politely and wish everyone a meaningful Thursday. At one point, someone tries to calculate how long it would take to ride the asteroid like a cowboy and deflect it using only firm eye contact. The math is inconclusive but inspiring. The planet holds its breath, then exhales. The Vatican releases a statement. So does Beyoncé. Both are remarkably similar. Something about love, unity, and always finishing your fries. Religious leaders of every kind declare a global truce, mostly because nobody wants to spend their final hours arguing over whose deity has the best punctuality. Meanwhile, a strange quiet descends. It's not eerie, it's reverent, as if Earth itself is taking a long sip of tea before the curtain falls. No more car horns, no shouting, even the birds switch to ballads. People hear their own hearts again. Some are surprised they still have one. Across the globe, humanity prepares its last acts. An inventor in Tokyo launches a tiny rocket with a USB drive full of human culture. Photos, music, recipes, memes. One includes a spreadsheet titled, "Everything We Screwed Up and What Not to Do Again." If found by aliens, it might save the next Earth a few headaches. A librarian in Nairobi organizes the great final reading. People gather around as volunteers read books aloud. Tolstoy, Dr. Seuss, Maya Angelou, Calvin and Hobbes. There are tears, yes, but also the kind of laughter that makes your ribs ache and your soul feel accidentally upgraded. Somewhere in Minnesota, a man builds a hot air balloon with only one goal: to rise high enough to flip off the asteroid before it hits. He fails gloriously, lands in a tree, and is fed pie by strangers until impact. No regrets. In Iceland, a collective of poets craft what they call the last rhyme. It is 6 words long. No one agrees on what they mean, but everyone agrees they are beautiful. One unexpected side effect of imminent extinction is fashion. With no tomorrow to save outfits for, people wear everything at once. Ball gowns to buy bread, tuxedos in the shower, pajamas on red carpets. A man in Rio invents the world's first edible suit made entirely of chocolate chip cookies. By the time reporters arrive, half of it has been eaten by squirrels. He considers this a win. Families make videos, not of themselves panicking, but dancing, singing, telling knock-knock jokes. A mother in Poland starts a global chain of bedtime stories. One family reads to another in another country, and so on. The last child falls asleep somewhere in Morocco, under a blanket covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. A question begins to echo through the world. Not, why us, but, did we do it right? The answers vary. Some say yes, others say probably not, but we tried. And that, in the face of space rock doom, is apparently enough. Art explodes, literally and figuratively. People paint murals on every wall. Street performers give their best shows. Graffiti becomes gospel. Someone sculpts the asteroid out of mashed potatoes and wins 0 awards, but 1,000 hugs. And when the skies finally begin to burn, not from fire, but from the sheer brightness of something ancient and enormous, people gather to watch. They don't scream. They don't hide. They sit on roofs, in parks, on beaches, in alleys. Holding hands, holding pets, holding grudges no longer. The world, facing its end, becomes strangely complete. And then, almost casually, someone plays the final track on a cracked record player. It's Louis Armstrong. He sings, in that gravelly echo that feels older than time. What a wonderful world. As the asteroid's glow intensifies, the sky ceases to be a backdrop and becomes the main event. Not just blue or gray anymore. It's a painting in motion. Oranges that bleed into crimson. Shadows stretching in directions that make no geometric sense. It's as if the heavens took one last shot at winning the Turner Prize. Astronomers, who once bickered about naming comets, now gather in silent awe. One removes their glasses, cleans them methodically, then places them back on with a sigh that says everything and nothing. They whisper something to the stars, and no one hears it. But somewhere, a dog stops barking. Time becomes syrupy. Seconds stretch. Minutes sigh. The world moves slowly, not out of exhaustion, but deliberate grace. Every blink is a frame. Every breath, a scene. If the end is near, Earth is determined to savor it like a fine wine or a last slice of cheesecake you swore you'd save for tomorrow. People don't hide. That instinct faded. Instead, they walk, not away from the asteroid, because where would you go? But toward one another. Old friends reunite without needing to say sorry. Ex-lovers hold hands without reopening wounds. Even bitter rivals. Sports fans, philosophers, that one neighbor who always parks like a maniac, share knowing nods and a bag of chips. A group of children in Argentina build a cardboard spaceship. They name it Plan B. It doesn't leave the ground, but they swear they felt it wiggle once. In Norway, someone begins to sing. Just one voice. No lyrics, just sound. Others join. Across countries, time zones, languages. A global choir with no conductor and perfect pitch. They don't sing to stop the asteroid. They sing so it knows what it's ending. And the asteroid listens. Not literally, of course. It's a rock. It doesn't have ears. But somehow, the world feels like it's being heard. People write letters. Some to God, some to exes. One simply says, "Dear life, thanks for the weird ride. P.S. Sorry about the fanny pack phase." These letters are tied to balloons, buried in jars, whispered into trees. Maybe no one will read them. But that's not the point. The internet does one last spectacular thing. It becomes human. No more trolls. No more clickbait. Just people being people, sharing memories, gratitude, regrets. A compilation of animals sneezing becomes the most watched video on Earth. And no one complains in the comments. In space, satellites begin to shut down. One by one, little dots go dark. But not before transmitting a single message. Just 3 words. We were here. It's enough. Back on the ground, someone discovers that if you play Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata in reverse, it sounds eerily like rain. They call it poetic. Everyone else just nods and quietly hopes it's true. And still the asteroid looms. Not fast anymore, not barreling, just descending, as if reluctant, as if embarrassed, like a guest who showed up late to the party with nothing but a fruitcake. People laugh, not because it's funny, but because that's what you do when you don't want to cry and you're out of words. A universal laugh, not hysterical, not hopeless, just human. The oceans glow, the winds hold their breath, and someone, somewhere, starts clapping. Slowly at first, then joined by others, until it becomes a planet-sized standing ovation. For what? No one knows. Maybe for life, maybe for Earth, maybe for each other. And as the asteroid prepares its final descent, the world keeps clapping, because if this is the end, let it be applause. The moment arrives with all the subtlety of a surprise party planned by a tornado. The asteroid collides with Earth. The sky ignites in a symphony of fire and light that no artist could capture and no poet could fully describe. Mountains shudder, oceans roar, and the very air trembles as if the planet itself is exhaling its last great breath. But here's the twist no one predicted. In the chaos, there is a strange stillness. A calm, almost sacred pause. Because what we feared wasn't just destruction. It was oblivion. But in that instant, the world seems to whisper a promise. That nothing truly ends without leaving a mark. Survivors, if there are any, will tell stories. Stories of bravery, kindness, laughter in the face of doom. They'll speak of shared meals under collapsing stars, of strangers holding hands when words failed, of the beauty found in endings. And for us listening now, in this moment before, it's a reminder that life, no matter how fragile, how fleeting, is the universe's greatest act of defiance. Maybe the asteroid is unstoppable, but so is hope. Thank you for joining me on this journey through what could be, what might have been, and what we still dare to dream. This is What If Horizons. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who loves deep dives into the unexpected corners of possibility. Until next time, keep wondering, keep questioning, and keep looking to the horizons.